This is a sermon about biblical role models. After the service, I would love to hear what character in the Bible inspires you like Joseph inspires me. So be thinking about that for the next 10 minutes while I talk. Actually, it was 9 minutes and 38 seconds at the early service, so you're getting a short one today. My children were 4 years old when I went to Israel in 2019. The trip was the longest period of time I had been away from them since their birth. For 2 weeks, I did not see my family and spoke with them only sporadically. It was really weird being off by myself like that because fatherhood turns on all at once. One day you're not a dad, then a little past 11 a.m. on a Tuesday in July you are, forever. A switch flips in your life whether you're prepared or not, and the most important role you will ever inhabit begins. But there's a big difference between being a father and feeling like a competent one. There were so many moments in my kids' first few years, and some moments in recent times too, when I felt like a parental failure. I won't list them now, but I'd be willing to bet if you're a parent, you can remember similar times in your kids' early years. So it was strange being on this 2-week vacation from parenting when I certainly didn't feel like I had earned it. The secret to parenthood that no one tells you is that being a competent parent is like being a good major league hitter. Even the best hitters only succeed 3 out of 10 times. I didn't know this secret back in 2019. My kids were too young to confirm whether I had done an okay job or not. So I went to Israel with this worry hidden inside me, in that place you know is there, but you don't really want to look at it. The worry was that I still had no idea what I was doing as a father, even though the 5-year mark was fast approaching. And with this worry fumbling around within, I arrived in Nazareth with our group on a hot, dusty mid-June day. We were visiting a church built over an ancient well that the church remembers as the well where Mary came to draw water. Every square inch of the interior walls of this church was covered in paintings depicting scenes from the lives of Mary and Jesus. And when I looked up at one, showing the scene narrated in today's gospel reading, I burst into tears. And I'll get back to my spontaneous weeping in a moment, but let's stick with the gospel reading for a minute or two. The way that Matthew's account of the gospel tells the story, Mary and Joseph do not settle in Nazareth until a few years after Jesus' birth. There is no tale of traveling from Nazareth to Bethlehem, no stable, no manger, no shepherds. These details are all in Luke's gospel. In Matthew, there are 3 elements of the story. Joseph receiving a dream vision from an angel telling him it is okay to wed Mary and raise Jesus. The wise people coming to Bethlehem to give Jesus gifts. And Herod's slaughter of the infants, which prompts Joseph and Mary to flee to Egypt. Unfortunately, our gospel reading this morning skips Herod's atrocity, but it is the reason that Joseph, Mary, and Jesus become refugees and asylum seekers. They hide out in Egypt for a few years until an angel tells Joseph the danger has passed with Herod's death. To avoid Herod's son, Joseph and Mary settle in Nazareth, several days traveled to the north of Judea. And this brings me back to the painting in the church in Nazareth, the one that made me burst into tears. The painting depicts the Holy Family returning from Egypt. a haloed Mary and a gray-haired and bearded Joseph walk together away from the slaughter happening on the other side of the image. And Jesus, a young boy now, rides on Joseph's shoulders. And that's what made me cry. That's what made me cry. I had never before seen such a paternal image of Joseph. He was doing something that I did all the time. I loved giving shoulder rides, and I can't do it anymore because they're too big. And not only that, but the look on his face in the painting is priceless. Up on his shoulders, Jesus seems to be pulling his ears. And Joseph is looking sideways at Mary in an exasperated sort of way. That day in Nazareth, for the first time in my short years of fatherhood, I identified with Jesus' earthly father on a deep personal level. He loved Jesus as his own child, even though he could have walked away from the very beginning. Like every committed parent, Joseph said yes again and again and again to loving Jesus, to raising Jesus, and sticking with it even when he felt incompetent, exhausted, or exasperated. That painting made Joseph my biblical hero for those early years of my parenthood. Biblical heroes can be tricky to embrace because so many characters seem untouchable, Jesus first among them. We know we are called to be like Jesus, but we also know that we'll never get that close despite our efforts. And so we look around for other models, and it turns out the ones we do embrace happen to be the ones whose humanity shows through, allowing us to embrace ourselves, warts and all. Peter is one such character, a man with so much influence in the early church that he could have surely suppressed the less flattering stories about himself, but chose not to. Martha is another, a woman, quote, distracted by many things, but who is also determined to make others feel at home. Joseph, who gets precious little screen time in the gospel, did not become my hero until I saw that painting in Nazareth. But once I saw Jesus on his shoulders, I felt a kinship to him that told me, perhaps I'm doing okay after all in this new fatherhood thing. Not batting 1,000, but no one ever does that. Mid-280s. Pretty darn good. Which character from the Bible do you identify with? And why that person? What is it about their character that inspires something inside of you? How does your study of the Bible influence your day-to-day life? As we begin 2025, I invite you to delve deeper into your own story by connecting your story to the biblical one. Because our stories of faith continue the story of what God is doing in God's creation. God is our author. And as God's characters, we get to tell God's story together. Amen.